welcome to Alliance on the Move, our regular weekly television program where we discuss issues of importance to the Guyanese population here at home and in the diaspora. We are at the end of 2025 almost. So we thought, this is a good time to start reviewing where we are as a nation, where we are as a people, what has been happening these past 12 months or so. And to join me in that discussion, I have the chairperson and interim leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. David Patterson. David, I'm so grateful, so thankful that you've taken time out. I know how busy you are. So I'm very thankful, very happy that you've taken time out for this discussion. It's December 2025, just a few more days, you can see, before the end of another year. I know you have expertise in the energy sector, in the infrastructure sector. You've been following the oil and gas industry carefully. So I want us to focus on that for this, let's say, the next hour or so. How would you assess, analyze our performance in the petroleum sector? If we can start with petroleum.
Thank you very much, Beverly, and good afternoon, good evening. Folks, whoever you're watching, season greetings to all of you. First and foremost, as Beverly said, on behalf of the Alliance for Change, we wish you a great, Merry Christmas. We encourage you not to overindulge. Don't drink and drive. Try to be respectful and share the good tidings that's associated with Christmas with your neighbors and your friends, and of course, the less fortunate. Beverly, in respect to the petroleum sector, well, I mean, what can I say? Our petroleum sector is on what you call remote control. It's being driven entirely by the operators, which are Exxon, Chevron, now as Hess is now there, and CNOG. We've done nothing innovative. The question that everyone spoke about, the question of renegotiations, have not even arisen. This government had no political appetite for that. The issues of audits, I mean, we've done 3 audits to date, and not one has been finalized. Based on the first audit, the Exxon and Partners owes this country almost $120 million US, which is a phenomenal amount of money. That's about almost what 30 billion Ghana dollars. This is owed to us since 2017, 2018. So I mean, you can imagine what we could have done with that. The question of disclosure, public information, there's been no progress on it. The question of transparency, whereby the public, John Public, everybody else other than the PPP government, and I don't even sure the entire government really have a clue what's going on, has not been addressed. Several other issues. We talk about the question of local content. I mean, we have this local content law, which is in place, but it seems just to apply to local content. The local persons within the PPP regimes seem to be the persons who are benefiting from that. So basically, we haven't made any progress since we first started in the administration of the petroleum sector, and we started in that oil production in December 2019. All that we have done is spend. And I mean, of course, I mean, there's nothing wrong with spending because the money belongs to us. We haven't saved anything, which is a sad state, because obviously the oil wouldn't be here forever. It's just like if you're gold mining or those things like that. OMI came and they opened a very large gold mine. You can remember in the 90s, and then at the end of it, 20 years later, there's no more gold, and they closed and they packed up their shop, and we were left with the ravelins, empty pit. So the idea is we have all these information to use, but we haven't used it well. So we what we call autopilot. You know what I mean? The government are clueless. They have no new ideas. They just simply bluff. They wait on the payments from the oil we've saved, that we sold, and they use that and not even using it wisely. So we do have a lot of far way to go as a country, producing 900,000 barrels a day, which makes us, according to data, the 18th highest oil producing nation in the world. In the world, imagine that. And then, of course, based on the projections from the oil company, by 2030 we should be 1.2 million barrels per day, which will jump us all somewhere around the 11th largest oil producer in the world. Question that I would ask everyone and yourself, I mean, because I keep asking myself, do we feel like the 18th largest oil producing nation in the world? Is it the benefits? Has my life improved? I mean, can I do things that I could not have done when just before we started producing oil? And the answer is a resounding no. So therefore, if that is the case, we obviously haven't made any progress in that unique direction. So that's my summation.
Yeah, but David, when you mentioned 900,000 barrels per day, we have a population of less than 800,000 or just thereabout, which means that every day, on average, we can understand that each Guyanese citizen is earning more than one barrel
per day.
But we have a poverty rate of 58%. Added to that, we have our children surviving in food poverty. They're not getting all the food groups they should be getting. Basically, our children are getting belly full, but not the nutrition they need. What does this mean for this generation? What does it mean for the generation to come?
Well, you're absolutely right, Pepe. Your maths is spot on. I mean, if it's simple maths means that every person is earning, say, literally 1 barrel per day. Everything entitled to the proceeds of 1 barrel today. And right now, a barrel of oil is running about $75 US, right? Which means that in theory, if you calculate it, every Guyanese is supposed to be getting 15,000 Guyana dollars per day from the oil we're producing. Of course, that's not the case. Of course, the government has reverted or promised that they would give us a one-off cash benefit, and that's 100,000. And I want to put this in perspective: we are earning 900,000 barrels per day, which means, and population about 800,000, which means you're supposed to get 15,000 Guyana dollars per day. The one-off 100,000, which we're not getting like they promised before Christmas, that equates to 250 Guyana dollars a day for every Guyanese. That's 100,000 by 365 days. So obviously, the government is pocketing 14,500 Guyana dollars from our money to give away to their friends, family, and favorites. So that's the first thing. Second issue is that everyone knows that coupled with education, a good education, teachers, your resources, and everything like that, for a child to learn, particularly any child, but particularly in the early formative years, that you must eat healthy, you must have a balanced diet. That is to develop your brain, and enable your concentration abilities and those things like that. And it helps ease the burden on your parents. You know, I mean, obviously, your parents should not have to make the decision to send you to school today or not. And the reason why they're not sending you to school today is because there's nothing to eat and they're embarrassed. So it's all linked. So therefore, if we have an undernourished population, school-age population, they will not develop as fully and as quickly as they should. Long term, which means that as they grow up, that deficiency comes and grows with them. So they will not be as productive as they should be. And these are things that, and this is not new to Guyana, these facts, I mean, but these are things which persons and economists and nutritionists and persons that study their country have looked at and developed. So we're not reinventing the wheel, where we said that one of the core issues that the government has to look at is address poverty, is addressing needs for our children, addressing needs for our community, because obviously it will benefit Guyana better in the long run. And that, unfortunately, is not being done. The numbers are staggering. As you said, 58% of our population are in food poverty, below the poverty line. And every single thing that we say in this program for this evening, people, please remember, we're the 18th. There's 181 countries in the world, including the Vatican and those things. We're number 18. We're in the top 10%. Top 10% of the world producing oil. So when the government speaks about all these things, just all remember that we're ahead of almost 170 countries when it comes to oil producing, including our good friends Trinidad, who, when they were on top of the world, they were really on top of the world. I mean, they used to throw it in the whole Caribbean's face. You know what I mean? They had oil, and oil don't spoil, and those things like that. You can see where they are at the moment due to lack of planning and preparation to ensure that when the oil runs out, you have a plan.
David, it's important that you talk about when oil runs out, because the initial plan, and this is from the discovery of oil in commercial quantities, when the APNU AFC, the coalition government, was in place, and then subsequently the PPP. The initial plan, or what was being touted, was that oil revenues would go to build the other sectors, the non-oil sectors. We promote ourselves as the breadbasket of the Caribbean. How is oil being used to advance that ambition?
Well, the initial plan has always been, it's just like it's just like savings in you open a bank account, and your salary goes into your bank account every month, and you decide, here's what I will do. We will save the money that we have. That was always the initial plan. So therefore, in 2018 and 2019, what the coalition government did is set up that savings account that you'd open in a bank, and we said, here's how it's going to do. And I can't remember the formula, but the simplistic way is that half of the money we're going to spend now, we're going to put the other half, we're going to put 25% a quarter of that up for future generations, and the other quarter we put up in case of a rainy day. And in case of a rainy day is events such as like a hurricane. We don't have hurricanes, but it's a natural disaster. In 2005, we would have had a big, massive flood that cost us billions. So the rainy day fund would have been there. So therefore, we can tap into that fund, because you don't know what will happen. The quarter, the 25% of what we earn now would be there for future generations. They would earn interest, so that everybody in Guyana from 2019 onwards until the country, whichever, is from all the future, they would have some money there, and of course with the interest in those things that you'll be able to use. And then of course the half of it is what any normal citizen do. You use it to do your day-to-day living. This government has, they're very greedy and short-sighted, and they're so corrupt. could not be satisfied with just half the money that we're earning to use. They wanted all. So they passed a law, they changed the law that the coalition had in 2019. They went to Parliament with one seat majority and changed that law. So here is what they did. Instead of using only half the money we're earning and putting on saving the other half, they passed a law so they can use now 98%. 98% of all the money we're earning today, that's what the government uses. And they left 2% only for our future generations and for emergencies. And they did this because they want to be able to say that they're doing it for us in Guyana. But what they're really doing is they wanted to be able to get their sticky fingers on the money right now. They were not satisfied, and this is billions and billions of dollars. Guyana earns 2 billion Guyana dollars a day, ladies and gentlemen. So instead of being satisfied with using $1 billion a day towards the country, they are using $1.9 billion every single day. And what are they doing for it? You know, what are we seeing for what they've done? What they're doing with the money? Yes, they're doing roads. We did roads. Every single government, I tell you, before this current PPP government, and I dare say any other government will do roads. Any other government will build bridges. Any other government will build hospitals, because that's what governments do. However, the difference between the PPP and any other government ever is that they build a road, they give out a contract for $1 million, they steal $500,000, and they give us half quality roads. They build hospitals, right? Poor quality hospitals, but they don't invest in the persons who will be manning. They don't invest in paying the teacher, the doctors more, the nurses, the technicians, etc. So that is what we have today. And of course, every time we, the opposition or the man in the street, make mention of these facts that, folks, these persons are stealing our money. They're not saving anything. They come on the airwaves, and of course they have the government airwaves. They have some friendly TV stations, and they say that we're anti-developmental. They accuse us of, because we ask that they spend more money on the human capital, on the people of this country, they save more money for we save more money for rainy days. They say to us we are anti-development. We want to stop progress. Folks, there's not progress we would like to stop. We would like to stop the theft. We would like to ensure that the money that we're earning and spending is done wisely and sustainably. You know, a prime example, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, came to Guyana, 2 years ago, and they drove him down what is the Heroes Highway. And it had so much bumps. Of course, I mean, I apologize on behalf of the Guyanese people, but the road is so wavy and it's so bumpy and so poorly constructed that his vehicle was bouncing up and down. And he said, I'm quoting him, that he needed a crash helmet to be able to drive down the road, because I could imagine him bumping up and down. The government, our government, the PPP, spent 16 billion Guyana dollars, right, building this road. 16 billion Guyana dollars building this road, about $70 million US. 2 years ago, opened 2 years ago, you know, in yesterday's papers, they are now going back for ads to repave the road, to pave the road over. And they're going to spend another $50 million US, another $25 billion to fix a problem that they did 2 years ago. So that's what we're speaking about, the wanton waste of money. You know, I mean, you can imagine with that the extra money they're going to spend now, if they did right, you could have paid the 200,000 cash grant exactly for Christmas, plus more. So that's what we talk about. It's not a question of spending money, not a question of building roads as they said they were doing. It's not a question of what it is. It's a question of spending it correctly and transparently, less corruption. But that's not their hallmark.
David, you mentioned earning 2 billion Guyana dollars daily. And the plan of the coalition government was that, well, you spend one, you save one. So that would be about 365 billion Guyana dollars annually would have been put into the economy. We started talking about the other sectors, and I want us to go back to, what has been happening with agriculture, with fishery, gold, timber, bauxite, the other sectors that kept us going pre-oil. But before we get into that, recently there was videos and photographs circulating of problems, defects on the new bridge across the Demerara River, the Barra Jagdeo Demerara Harbor Bridge. Do you have any information on what's happening with that multi-billion-dollar project?
Well, I start off by saying this, Beverly. Once you name it the Barra Jagdeo Bridge, you know for sure, right, that what you're getting. Once you name it the Barra Jagdeo, that Barra Jagdeo as a president and as a vice president, and as a finance minister, and I say this, and we've been saying this for the longest while, has never ever completed a successful project. Right? Skeldon, Marriott, you name the hundreds of bridges, the hundreds of projects Barra Jagdeo have done. So here you have a president, when it comes to building and infrastructure projects, that's never ever completed a successful project. He's left us with tremendous, meaning the single decision to do Skeldon Sugar Factory was a death nail in Gaisiku. So then you name the bridge after a failed politician, in particularly when you talk about project. You know for sure that there will be issues with the bridge. So what's happening now? And we predicted it. And when we said it early on, of course, the usual PPP's rhetoric about us being anti-developmental. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what they did. All cane fields, Houston cane fields that are there, they just dug up the earth, and anybody knows that they just dug up the earth, throw sand, throw some, just like Heroes Highway, throw some concrete and asphalt over it, and then open it up with much great big fanfare. Obviously, you'll have defects. Obviously, there will be settlement. There will be issues with the concrete mix and those things like that. So that's what we have now. And just like the example that I gave you just now with the Heroes Highway and them having to surface it, same thing with the bridge. Same thing with the bridge. Further, Beverly, every major bridge in this country, we did previously, even the PPP, you would have had an act governing the bridge because it's a major ferry. So when they built the first Demerara, the old Demerara Harbor Bridge, the floating bridge, there's a Demerara Bridge Act, which says this is how you control it. These are what you can do. This is not what you can do. Even the Berbice Bridge, there's a Berbice Bridge Act because of the importance of the significance of this. They have yet to table and incorporate this bridge into our national infrastructure architecture. So, simple thing, if you have an accident right now on that bridge, pulley, whatever it is, you set up Katiji dinner. It's not a declared public structure, and obviously, if it's not a declared public road or public bridge, the insurance company does not cover you for those accidents. You know what I mean? And it's quite simple. Simple law is that you must be on a gazetted road. or a gazetted public where for the insurance company to honor your claim. This bridge, Open Much Fanfare, has not been incorporated back into our national infrastructure architecture. So therefore, it's just a bridge standing there on its own. Have no doubt they recognize their errors sometime. Some accident happened, and then they'll come and do it retroactively. But that's just the PPP. Just bluster and do it. You mean almost like the Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come. You mean so they build it, started to crumble, started to decay right away. The approaches are failing, but then they say to you, "Oh, that's development."
David, that's most interesting because I was not aware of the link between the need for an act that would cater for insurance coverage. I mean, like they're putting up cameras on the bridge now, but the fact that if there's an accident, damages or life or anything, persons cannot go to their insurance. I think that is something that the rest of the nation, a lot of us, would not have been aware of. I want to introduce Dr. Vincent Adams. Dr. Adams just joined us. Vince, thank you for joining us. I was discussing with David the performance of the petroleum industry 2025. We looked at earnings and we were looking at where some of that earnings is going. And we were just discussing some of the infrastructure projects that a lot of money has been spent on, billions being expended on these projects. He was just talking about the Heroes Highway, Demerara Harbor Bridge. And I know, Vince, you've been following the energy project, another multi-billion-dollar project. What can you share with us on how that project is going ahead or not going ahead? Likely outcomes of that.
Well, yeah, and I caught a tail end about the bridge. Here's a story, and we've told this before, that people ought to remember. This government, without question, they do not follow the rule of law. The EPA, when I was there, the tail end of when I was there, we required an EIA, environmental impact assessment, for that bridge. And all this insurance and emergency response and everything, that's what an EIA does. It identifies hazards and risk, and you have to put mitigative action into it. We left, it was even published, it was in the newspapers, which is the normal process we follow. I left in the late 2020, the government in November went and retracted that notice in the newspapers for EIA. The government said we don't need any EIA. The staff of the EPA was shocked because the persons who wrote they're going through the normal process. This is high hazards. You've got all, some of those things that we're talking about, even when they're constructing. You remember we had issues with construction, people driving piles with people in the neighborhoods. All of that an EIA takes into consideration so you can mitigate against it. None of the government withdrew. That's a fact. It's on record. The government went and withdrew the EIA that the EPA issued into the newspapers and built this bridge without any analysis of looking at the impacts and how to mitigate it. That's the first thing. The second thing, let's get to the gas energy project. The contract, the agreement, the PSA, production sharing agreement between the government and Exxon, says specifically in there, and I think at Article 12, I've repeated this so many times that I know the article, it says specifically, thou shalt have an EIA, a feasibility study for the use of any gas. Well, guess what? They ignored it. Jagdeo, when he's questioned, he's basically said the only feasibility study he has, it's a no-brainer in his head. They went ahead and built this, started building this project, and David can even say that this location was considered David and his people considered this location, and it ranked way down for many reasons. Safety and you know, and even when I was at EPA, I steered these type of hazardous type of industries outside of Georgetown. I was even telling them to go, they need to go to that, you know, those islands on the mouth of the Essequibo and all that kind of stuff. You cannot go and try to retrofit these type of, you know, high hazard, high risk facilities in the middle of that metropolitan area of Georgetown and Region 3 area. But they were hell-bent in it. They did not do a feasibility study in accordance with the law or in accordance with that contract. So guess what? Guess where we are? We are, of course, we know the $100 million fiasco that David mentioned about in terms of a foundation, which is basic. A feasibility study would have identified that. They went ahead now, and David knows the numbers better than I do. We started out with what, $700 million US. Now we're about $2.5 billion, more than 3 times the cost has tripled. And don't let me even talk about the schedule. This thing was supposed to have done maybe 3 years ago, and now we don't even know when it's finished. Now we're hearing the dates keep pushing back and pushing back. So this here is the incompetence, but this is all about corruption again, okay? The money goes into the money. The people do not see this money. The money goes into whoever pockets it, and then we get this pipe dream of cutting the electricity cost to the consumers by half. It's absolutely nonsense. You see, Beverly, all of this money that we're getting, all of these infrastructure and loans and everything else, they're feeding. There's a reason why in the last budget, 60% of that money, $666 billion, went into infrastructure, because that's the easiest avenue to steal. And it only goes to that top, 5% or so. It doesn't, the people don't see
large,
it. That
1-2%. 5 is quite large. 5%
okay,
is 1-2%.
You know, you got to be nice. It's Christmas time here. You know, you try to be, you help them out. You know, you try to be generous here. But you're right. You know, some people say, like David said, 1%, but I'm being generous. It's Christmas time. Let me say 5%. That's where the money goes into their friends and families' pockets. Is the easiest way. And you watch it in the next budget. Did you hear yesterday? Did you hear the president? All he talked about was infrastructure. That's where their focus is, and that's where the money is. So when, you know, and oil, and just since we're touching on oil, this is a guy who he did not say anything about oil, period, oil and gas, which is, and as David had mentioned, or sometime, you know, earlier, that 91% of our exports comes from oil and gas. And how could you not mention? That's what has driven up this false GDP, as false as it is. That's what drives it up, that they're bragging about. So we've got a high GDP, so we can borrow like drunken sailors and build these infrastructures to put money in our pockets and in their friends' pocket, but not the 58% poverty population. The money is, and if you think it's bad now, because it's $11 billion, 11 billion barrels of reserve. That's not true. And there's a reason. You can have another press conference to talk about why it suits their cause to not tell us the higher number that it is, because for decommissioning funds, for example, that they withdraw, the higher the reserves, the lower would be the decommissioning costs that they're withdrawing, Exxon, that they're withdrawing right now. And I brought this to the attention. It's a direct relationship. So let's say it's $22 billion. Let's say it's 22 billion barrels. The amount of the billions that they're withdrawing right now for decommissioning, that is going to be done 25 years from now. If you double the reserve, the money that they withdraw right now would be doubled. Would be doubled. I mean, it would be halved. If you double the reserve, let's say it's 22 billion, the money that they're withdrawing right now would be cut in half. So that's the reason why the formula is clear. And then Rutledge went, and when his question was a question related, he lied that in terms of how the decommissioning cost that they withdraw is calculated, a blatant lie. But anyway, so Guyana, and I think the citizens, these are the kind of programs where citizens need to be paying attention, because Guyana, without question, could become by far the richest country on the earth for several reasons. The 11 billion barrels, as low as the low ball as they want to make it, we've got more oil than Mexico, which is regarded as an oil producing state. We've got more oil than Norway. Norway reserve is 8 billion barrels, and Norway is one of the 2 or 3 richest countries on the earth. But you know what they did? They manage it well, no corruption. So those are the kinds of things that we must do, and we must hold this government accountable to make sure that money gets to the people who it belongs to. This money belongs to not this government. They hide information from us. They hide, like the field development plan that really has the details of absolutely. But here's the most important thing that they hide. And by the way, the most is the quarterly documents, the quarterly reports that Exxon submits to them to say, okay, here is the revenues, here's how much Guyana gets, here's how much we're paying down on this cost, start paying off all of these debts. Right now it's about $60 billion that these 4 or 6 projects cost, and it's heading up to about 100 billion with the new projects. So you've got to pay off that cost. It's like buying a house. Is that mortgage cost. So you got to pay that mortgage, but then you got to pay to operate it. So when are we going to be finished paying that mortgage cost? I have bet, folks, that we will never pay it back, because there's no ring fencing. And then there's in the formula itself, we are only allowed up to 75% for the what we call cost oil. But we do not even know, because we don't see the financial report whether it's really costing 75%. Or it's costing 90% or even 95%. So guess what happens? Let's say it's 95%. That 20%, and I think our audience need to listen to this very carefully, that 20% is carried over to the next month and the next month and the next month. So it's like you, Beverly, I know you like to shop and stuff like that. It's like you getting your credit card, and every month you go there, you charge $1,000, but guess what you're doing? You're only paying $100 back at the end of the month. So it keeps building, and so that's at some point, at some point interest is going to kill me. Well, we don't even know what the interest rate is. The people need to put pressure on this government for the people to see the information. And here's what's so insulting about this man, which is he always does this. He's saying, when pressed, he's saying, well, the people won't understand these reports. That's what this man says. He said that nobody's smart enough to understand these reports. So that's where we are.
That's interesting, because the president really recently had this 2.5 heading into 3 hours presentation at Parliament. The one thing that I think 90% of Guyanese were expecting to hear was the payment of a cash grant, a direct cash transfer into the pockets of people. You talk about money belonging to the people of Guyana, the resources belong to the people, and money going directly to people. But apart from not saying anything, what we have heard from this government, this PPP government, is that you get a cash grant if you behave yourself.
Yep.
What sort of a government says you will give the people their money if they conform to whatever standards you want. What sort of a monarchy, an autocracy? How would you describe the government that says to the people, you will get your money, but you got to behave yourself?
To me,
Beverly,
it's you go ahead. You want to go?
yeah, Beverly, that's what we call it uncaring government. You know what I mean? Like, those are the things that your grandparents used to do to you. You know what I mean? If when you behave bad or something like that, at the end of the day, said, oh, if you do good, if you do your chores, you can get a gift and those things. But the point that I am more interested in is that 95% of the people are expecting a cash grant. Why? Because it's hard water season. Nothing that this government has done has eased the price of the cost of living for our citizens. And so we are now dependent, and persons are dependent on these cash grants. If they've done everything equitably and studiously, nobody would want a cash grant. You wouldn't need a cash grant. You mean a cash grant? You would use it to do something other than what it will be used for. You know what I mean? If everything was really good, the cash grant would have gone to pay for me to go and visit Kaichur and those things like that. The cash grant that people have wanted for, it's for basic human living, basic food, water, lights, and those things like that. Basic comfort. And that is where we are at. You know what I mean? People are, the debts are mounting. They want to do something for their kids. They want to have their kids so the kids can have family can have a good Christmas, you know, the pepper pots and those things. They want to be able to buy meat. Chicken has gone up. Beef has gone up. Pork has gone up. I mean, fish is Mr. Fish. You know what I mean? Fish used to be the cheapest form of protein that we have now. Fish is Mr. Fish. So, and then of course now, the everything, rice, cooking oil, all the basic things that we need have gone up, has risen. So therefore, and of course our salaries haven't grown in. So that is why the people are looking out for a cash grant. And this government is very uncaring, very, very uncaring.
Well, and as far as the uncaring is concerned, we know that from the start. You know, as the whole saying, you know, people, voters, as people say, the voters have a very short memory. This is the same government that was against the cash grant from day one, and we should not forget that. They were dragged kicking and screaming to have a cash grant. You remember? So this here is not something that they started out wanting to do. And you remember the chaos that happened even when they tried to implement the cash grant. So, and they proved it again yesterday from the Vice President, Jagdeo. He got up there and spent innumerable amount of time mourning and lamenting and insulting people about this cash grant, how much $63 billion, and how when he was in office, $63 billion was his old program, all kinds of nonsense to defend not having a cash grant. These people resent having a cash grant, so they have no interest. And but they built on top of that the disrespectfulness by saying, both of them said that a lot of people just waiting for this handout. They don't want to work. They don't want of their own money. This money is not the people. This money is not the government, Jagdeo and Ali's money. This is the people money, but they somehow believe it's their money and they're doing people a favor. This man even went as far when he was lying yesterday to convince people that this 63 billion or this 100,000, this man lied to compare what he is doing or what they're doing with what Alaska does. Well, since all this comes, Alaska has a program for who knows how long, a very long time. Every year, all of its citizens gets a dividend. This man said it only happened one time. Go back and look at it. Folks, if you believe that I'm lying, go back and look at the tape. The man said one time, just to convince people that, oh, you know, you guys complaining, but Alaska, who's been producing oil forever, only did it one time. I went back, I said, nah, this can't, but I know that it was a lie. This year, as a matter of fact, they should be getting their checks. Alaska has handed out $1,000 to each of his citizens. Year before, and it all depends on the revenue, which is fair. Last year it was 1,700 and something, 702 or something, which is the equivalent to this year 1,000 would be equivalent to over $200,000 in Guyana money, and last year the 1,700 would be close to 400,000. So those are the numbers, and even before when our prices were high, it's much higher than that. So these people, to begin with, Beverly, they never wanted a cash grant, and they were insulted. With all of this, I hadn't heard him say anything about, he's talking about his $63 billion. The infrastructure money that they're putting in their friends' pockets is $666 billion right now, with 40% waste. And even the 40% waste is 5 times that 63 billion. I hear you talking on it, anything about the $100 million that they waste on the gas to energy project. So I hear you talking about all the billions that they're wasting on these roads, and we're going to experience on the bridges, but he's lamenting over giving the people who need the money, that 58% who are in dire poverty. That's not how you govern a country.
Guys, what we are seeing is this absolute control of the PPP of every aspect. We have seen them refuse to convene Parliament because, of course, the speaker who should be calling Parliament comes out of the PPP camp. So we have seen them refusing to convene Parliament because they don't want Mr. Azzuddin Mohammed to be appointed or elected as the leader of the opposition. Is the cash grant and the need for the cash grant and public support for direct cash transfer, would you say that is one of the reasons why they are now pushing a 5-year or a multi-year plan, which we support multi-year planning, but is this one of the reasons why they're pushing a multi-year plan that has no involvement of the opposition? Because they know that the opposition and the voices of the opposition, people across Parliament, outside of Parliament, will demand that such a plan has direct cash transfer to the citizens. Would you say?
Now, first and foremost, Jagdeo more than admitted that yesterday. He said they have no money. Right? To get money, all you have to do is convene Parliament and vote yourself up supplementary for it. And there's more than that, more than enough of that money there. They raided the Treasury to bankroll their elections, and this is something that the EU in their report said. It ought to mean that they literally raided the country's coffers to get re-elected, giving away handouts and monies and those things. And as a result, right, the money that we had earmarked for 2026, they spent it. But all you have to do is reconvene Parliament. They don't want to reconvene Parliament because the opposition will say to the people that you promised 200,000. They will say to the people, elect a leader of the opposition. They say to the Parliament, you know what I mean? And on leader of the opposition, that really is grotesque. We've never been without a leader of opposition in the history since independence for such a long period. You know what I mean? It is absolutely grotesque, and as well. So they're avoiding Parliament, even though they have a majority, but they're scared. They are scared of their own shadows. They are scared of everything like that. But they do this, and then of course you tell people you got to behave and those things. What's behaving? And asking for my children to eat a proper meal. If I can't ask for that, you're saying I'm not behaving. So, Beverly, it's corruption. I wanted to mention this here, Beverly. There's a video. I'm not gonna call things, but everybody can go online and see. There's a video out there. We talking about the Generation Wealth in the internet. You can go there right now on Facebook, where the members of WIN team, one of the members of WIN team, stood in front of a mansion, a massive big mansion, and claimed that the mansion is the home of the one of our ministers from Barbados. You go on the video, so I don't want to get our company that is being got to DHTV into any issue. So, but you go on you go on and you click mansions in Guyana, and you'll see this video. Allegedly, the minister's son, whoever it is, has never worked a day in his life. Has a massive big mansion. And you know what's most telling, Beverly and Vince? You've not seen a claim or a retraction, a rejection, and it's been up for a week. And that tells you something as well. And I also wanted to mention, when we talk about things in the public sphere, it is in the newspapers that the president's wife, mother, has sued a foreign Facebook influencer because she has repeated claims against her, which said that she allegedly involved in corrupt practice. You know what's another telling thing? The president's mother is suing. One, she's a Canadian citizen. I don't know how many people know that the president's mother, just like is a Canadian citizen, you know what I mean? That's another thing. Two, that the same president, until he got into government and used his diplomatic, was banned from Canada. These are all facts, and I'm making these things up. And three, she's suing the influencer for repeating the story, but you know who she hasn't sued? The man that made the claim on national TV. Right? Why? So this whole issue of corruption and where the money goes and those things like that, it's all unraveling around them. You know, those are two things I'd ask you folks. Go on Facebook right now. I think if you go on Wynn's page or some other page or on any of the popular pages, you'll see a mansion fit for people like Bill Gates and those things like that in Guyana, allegedly belonging to the son of a minister who is from Barbados. So you know how many ministers you have from Barbados, how many of them have children and sons. Not a single demand for retraction to date. Corruption is to the core.
And David, well, the other part of that, according to the information, this mansion is built in the same area that where they removed the Moko people.
The Moko persons, exactly.
So again, you know, they removed the Moko people under the pretense that there is a road, but they've got these mansions going up in the high dollar district now. It's now become a high dollar district. So that's what we did. It's a dictatorship. You can call it, you can't put lipstick on a pig. You can call it, this here we are dealing with a dictatorship. And you are absolutely correct, Beverly. I have no doubts. They do not want people to ask questions. And that is how an autocracy behaves. It's a dictatorship. In Parliament, they're going to, people are going to ask questions. So they're not going to convene Parliament. They're paying the MPs their salary, their stipends, whatever you call it. But it doesn't matter. You got I've never heard an excuse like this, that the speaker is on vacation. Even though you have a deputy speaker. I mean, there should be laughter, but they can only do those things in Guyana. It's a dictatorship we have. That's what this is about. And, so all of this stuff, and even this whole plan, I don't even know if they got a plan. All this stuff is a bunch of empty promises, a bunch of rhetoric and propaganda that they always do, where show us when you get into Parliament, what they're going to have to do is say, okay, give us specifics and tell us how much it's going to cost. They can't do that. Yeah. So it's
table the plan.
Absolutely. They know they can't do that. And so that's what's going on. That's why, but this here is beyond anything. This here is unconstitutional and anything that you can call it. And they do not care. They really do not care. That is the problem.
Guys, we have probably like about 7 to 8 minutes remaining of our program time. What would you say to Guyanese as they look towards 2026? What's in store for Guyanese from your assessment of how 2025 would have gone, what happened in 2025, what do you think Guyanese can expect in 2026?
Look, I don't think they will get anything much. We will get anything much different other than rhetoric and plenty talks and cuss down anybody that cussing out of persons who say anything to them, and it may get worse. You know, Bev. Let me touch on a thorny subject that no one wants to talk about, but will get has the possibility of getting worse in 2026. Immigration. We have reportedly about 100,000 Venezuelans in the country, and you're welcome. I'm not being anti-Venezuela. I'm here just talking about the reality of what's happening at the moment. The USA, and for valid reasons and for whatever reasons, have an armada. Quarter of the naval fleet is parked in front of Venezuela. They have sanctioned all the they set a no sanction oil rig can leave from Venezuela. And Venezuela is already struggling with hyperinflation, and that's why we have so many. The longer that goes on, the greater the incentive for Western or Venezuelan neighbors to come to seek something better in Guyana. This government has repeatedly refused to sit down and put an immigration policy. Not an immigration, when you put an immigration policy, don't let it fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Immigration policy is just like when you go to the States. If I migrate to the States, I sign up with the State Department, they give me a green card, and I have to spend so amount of time, I have to conform, etc., with the rules and those things like that, etc., etc. They refuse to do a similar thing here. Not stop people. I mean, you need the labor. You are a good neighbor. You help. But everybody should be signed up. I mean, I know they're talking about this eSIM and these e-cards and those things, but both done got a false. Both done have gone a false. And here is the and they have also, because they want to win election, they've brought on about, I don't know, of the 100,000, it is estimated they brought on about 25,000 of these Venezuelans, fast track them to citizenship so that they could vote for them. Here is the danger, Vince, that this short-sighted, idiotic PPP government is. Once the ruling is, by the Chief Justice, which they celebrated, once your name gets on that electoral list, it cannot be removed. That's the ruling from the Chief Justice. So you've already brought on 25,000 persons just to get into get past the 2025 elections. These persons are legally, legitimately entitled to vote. What if they form a Venezuelan nationalist Guyanese party and all 25,000 Venezuelans, which you, the PPP, brought them onto vote? That's 6 seats. So immediately now, because of this short-sightedness, and because America has rules, England, everybody has rules, but you mean if you come here, you have to do this. So you immediately can be ceding our democracy just because you wanted to win an election. Let us have a discussion on these things like that. You mean you're not stopping people coming here. We have all sort of persons, but you know what I mean. You come, you have to be a resident. You have to come and comply with our laws. You have to be a resident in good standing for 7 years, and then you apply for citizenship.
Pay your taxes.
You pay your taxes. I mean, none of these Venezuelans pay taxes, other than maybe VAT when they go and buy products and so. They don't pay. They're not registered GRA. They don't have a TIN number. Us Guyanese, I mean, for me to go sell my car, I gotta go and get a compliance from GRA, and they go back 7 years. So we have we have like 1/8 of our population, just really nearly, and they could turn up. Thankfully, it's a good thing, but they could turn up to the public hospital, and we have to look at them. That's our moral duty, to look at them in the public hospital. They are in our schools. Our duty is you turn up. You don't turn away school-age children, but they pay no taxes. The PPP are glad to have them because they encourage them to vote for them in the last election. Short-sightedness. Doing something about it doesn't make you anti-immigrant or anti-Venezuelan. Those things. It makes you just a functioning democracy. Bev, I just wanted to let, because the issue is Region 5 and Region 6 will be adversely affected, as with our 1 and so should the issues happening now escalate any further? Thank you.
Dr. Vincent, 2 minutes.
Yes.
What do you think Guyanese can look forward to in 2026?
Well, the whole thing is people need to be paying attention to programs such as these, because what they've got is a propaganda machine, and it's a bunch of lies and propaganda. So people need to be paying attention to get the facts that they get from these type of programs. This government is a lawless government. We saw what you don't want any more evidence than what's happening in Parliament right now. That's lawlessness and all the other stuff they do. They do not follow the rule of law. It's a dictatorship. So what the people ought to be doing is paying attention, but holding them accountable. And the only way that they can hold them accountable is, guess what? Through the electoral process. So they need to be pushing. Nothing is being mentioned about GCOM, as David alluded to. That's probably the most fundamental thing to hold them accountable. So they don't want to be held accountable. No biometrics, no clean voter list. The exact same thing that Jagdeo and them were calling for when they were in the opposition. So people need to hold them accountable. And the last thing I want to end is this whole thing about you know, the cash grants and stuff like that. People need to understand. They need to pay attention again to this oil industry. This money belongs to them. Nothing, all the documents that they're hiding, people need to be letting them know that this here has nothing to do with them. There's stores that the people put in there, and the people need to be holding them accountable to say, this money is ours. We should be demanding how much we want, not you with so condescending to tell me that, like a little child, that if I behave myself, I'm going to get this little handout. Heck, it's my money. And people need to be making that very clear to them. And don't let them believe that they own anything in Guyana, including the oil money.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent Adams, David Patterson. Very interesting discussion and a very good point to close on. The money earned by Guyana belong to the people of Guyana. On average, 1 barrel per citizen per day. Are you getting value of 1 barrel to your lives? Is that value being added to your life? So as we look towards 2026, I encourage all of you here who would have been viewing this program to continue to follow the Alliance for Change, Alliance on the Move program, where you'll be informed, where you will be educated. We have experts in the field who discuss these matters, such as Dr. Vincent Adams, David Patterson, and others. I want to take this opportunity to wish you all a safe holiday season. We know a lot of crazy things have been happening on the road. Our human resources are our most prized, most cherished, most valuable resource. And so we need all Guyanese to be safe during this holiday season. David, Vince, again, thank you. I know at this time you're very busy gentlemen, so I really do appreciate you taking the time. And to DTV for a very professional service over the years. We really do appreciate you guys, and we wish you all the best for the holiday season. I thank you.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to everyone. Bye.
Thanks.